What state does trying to understand the universe without revelation lead humanity to? I'm now going to show you a short cautionary clip from my archives on this very topic. The person in the video is explaining that an evolutionary process does not occur by chance, as is commonly thought. He says we're not the ones saying it's by chance. By the way, we see that new atheists have an allergy to the word chance. Although it was a concept frequently used by all atheists, words like chance and randomness have become so tainted that a significant portion of new atheists try to distance themselves from these concepts. They claim they are not asserting that events in the universe happen by chance. This is a good development actually, but look where they hit their heads this time.
The randomness in diversity mechanisms like mutations is not an unguided randomness. Like every other event in the universe, it is determined and governed by the laws of nature.
Determined and governed by the laws of nature.
Look, this is not a joke. I want you to understand this very well. This friend, who says, the process is not an unguided coincidence, stated that the event is governed by the laws of nature, just like every other event in the universe. By the way, this belief is very common in the scientific community. You can hear similar statements from many people, including Hawking. So, we are not just dissecting one person's sentence here, we will discuss a very general problem, a general comedy. Now, we've previously said that the current scientific method always points to the preceding cause as the agent of events. That was one of the most important tenets of naturalism. But this appears as another crucial tenet, as a second idol. To believe that events in nature are governed by the laws of nature?
When you throw a ball into the air, is its return to a specific point a matter of chance or randomness? No, it is a process governed by a law of nature, gravity.
This is like saying, is the writing of the sentence "Mert threw the ball" a matter of chance or randomness? No, it is a process governed by the rules of the Turkish language.
So you think this happened by chance? But I'm not saying it's by chance. There are Turkish laws. What? You know, the rules of the Turkish language. Like proper nouns start with a capital letter. 3 consonants can't appear side by side. Or there's a rule called consonant assimilation. Those laws are writing this sentence. Look, you'll see it right here. The word mert starts with a capital letter. And here, there's consonant assimilation. Or, other rules. So those laws are writing this sentence. We never said it was by chance. When did we ever say it was by chance? There you go.
Look, the subject is actually very simple, incredibly simple. It's very simple if certain rules are imposed on us. The moment you see such a sentence, you begin to know its writer. For example, you would immediately conclude that the owner of this sentence knows Turkish, right? Why? Because the rules of Turkish have been applied. This is very simple, and the writer is outside of what is written, not of the same nature as what is written, etc. Everyone understands these things very easily, but a child who has been indoctrinated since childhood with rules like, don't go outside the paper, you can explain everything within the paper's 2 dimensions, what's outside the paper is not scientific, would think just like that. Anyway, we've discussed this before, let's get back to our topic. So, are we denying the laws of nature? Of course not. What we are saying is simply this. There is no difference in this respect between the event of writing the sentence "Mert threw the ball" and the event of a thrown ball falling. Both are events where specific rules are applied. Here, Turkish rules are applied. There, the rules of gravity are applied. Just as the rules of Turkish cannot write this sentence without a conscious agent who knows the rules, has the power to write the sentence, and has the will to choose to apply Turkish rules over, say, the rules of another language, in the same way, the law of gravity cannot make that ball fall without a conscious agent who knows the law of gravity, has the power to apply it, and has the will to choose to apply it at precisely the required values rather than not applying it. Just as this sentence reveals its writer, so does that event. Using the same reasoning is sufficient. By the way, what we call laws of nature, we actually discussed this in the video on order, are things we formulate and name after sufficiently studying the existing orderly motions. They are not things with an external existence, they are conceptual things. They are things we note down after observing the regularities in the universe. It's giving a mathematical name to an observed event. So first we'll see the event, give it a name, and then say this name is what causes the event. How can such an irrationality be possible? Are we to worship the laws we ourselves have named? Do you worship what you yourselves have carved? These are but names which you have named, you and your fathers. Does the law of gravity make the leaf fall? We produce that law by looking at the event of it falling. We defined it. A law only tells us the conditions under which an event is done. Now we will examine the biological aspect of the matter related to the world of living beings, which is where I think the real nonsense happens. Look, if even the most absurd things are regularly suggested to you, after a while you will become unable to think otherwise. This is not a simple matter. Perhaps I am talking about the greatest oppression that can be done to you right now. The consequence of this belief and ignorance assaults your very perception of existence. Then, for example, when we say, why does this newborn camel calf have a body perfectly suited for the place it will live? Look, by the way, I'm talking about a newborn camel, one born today. Design illusionists, natural selectionists. Please pay attention to this detail. The millions of years of history of the camel species do not concern me right now. That's not my topic. Assume we are considering the most recent zygote to camel process in nature. A voice asks us to know him by taking heed, saying, do they not look at the camels, how they are created? We are now looking at the latest example. So when we look at this event and ask, why does this newborn camel calf have white feet perfectly suited for the geography it will live in, a humped body and long dense eyelashes? And when we are about to exclaim in amazement, Allahu Akbar, thinking, the zygote has no eyes to see that the outside world is a desert, nor the knowledge, awareness, or compassion to calculate that it needs to store extra water, and have white feet to avoid sinking in the sand. We get the answer. Because it is coded in its DNA. Look, the counter argument here is not, well then, who coded that DNA in the first place? Don't forget the red staff. Don't skip the chain of causation. Don't stray from the present moment. Keep questioning. Let's take a look at this DNA issue. Because this is another significant veil drawn over our minds, and it resembles this worship of laws. Imagine two children trying to get to know the architect by admiring a historic mosque adorned with various architectural styles and different features. They look at the mosque and are about to say, he must have known mathematics very well. He also understood acoustics. He was very meticulous, a great master. When someone comes and says,
Children, it is not scientific to believe in things we cannot observe and measure. Where is this master you speak of? Can you see him here? Then you no longer need to believe in this fairy tale of a master.
I will find for you how this mosque was made. And after a bit of searching, he returns with a notebook in his hand. A project notebook, the blueprint of the mosque. Indeed, whatever feature the mosque has, all of it is detailed in the project notebook.
Upon this, he says, so the thing that made this mosque is this blueprint. All these features you admire are contained within these plans. So there's no need to believe in fairy tales about a master. Hey, where are you going? I'm not saying it's by chance. I'm saying the project notebook did it. The deoxyribonucleic notebook. I am filling the gaps with this.
Now, our first response to this man would not be, well, who drew that blueprint then? Although that is also a valid question. If you skip that step in the chain of reasoning, you cannot expose the ignorant state the man has fallen into. What we must emphasize here is, can a blueprint build a mosque? A blueprint does not build a mosque. To build a mosque, one needs an agent who knows the blueprint, has the power to implement it, and has the will to choose to implement the blueprint exactly according to its values, rather than not implementing it. And we do not see such an agent in the zygote to camel process. DNA is the blueprint, the code of living things, but what is it that knows this blueprint, has the power to apply it with dominion over everything, and has the will to choose to apply the blueprint exactly according to the code, rather than not applying it? We cannot find these attributes in the DNA itself, nor in the helicase that splits it, nor in the other enzymes and elements. We see that all these elements are merely arrangements of dead matter from the periodic table, and nothing more. Moreover, whoever that agent is, it must also have dominion over the womb of another camel in another desert, because the same code is being applied there right now. And it must even have dominion over the sun, because the laws of physics that govern motion here are also being obeyed there. Giving it a fancy name like deoxyribonucleic acid doesn't solve the issue. There is measure in every moment of a leaf's fall to the ground, but just when we are about to find the all-knowing one by saying, we see neither in the leaf nor in the earth the knowledge and consciousness to calculate this measure, just when our minds are ready to affirm this truth even without having heard the verse, not a leaf falls but that he knows it, we get the answer. There is the law of gravity, but a law doesn't make a leaf fall. A leaf is made to fall with a law. The rules of Turkish do not write a sentence. A sentence is written with the rules of Turkish. A blueprint doesn't erect a mosque. A mosque is erected with a blueprint. Who is applying the law of gravity? That is the question. But many minds are exposed to this dogmatic poison for years without being able to ask these questions. Science classes, which should be a means to know God, take on a nature that distances one from God. Why? Because everyone thinks that as they study, events are being explained. How does a leaf fall so precisely? There is a law, son, it makes it fall. The law takes it and makes it fall like this. There's nothing to be amazed at. Why is the camel like this? Because we found its DNA. Why is it that in the 300,000 babies born today, each has ears and arms aligned just as they should be? Just as they should be. The eyes are on top. The mouth is below. Teeth are made hard as they should be, while the eye is left soft as it should be. Can you imagine the opposite? We wouldn't want our tongue, which perceives taste, to be on our heel instead of in our mouth, right? Don't worry, we are not us, but we see them being put in the right place 300,000 times a day. Just as it should be, moment by moment, carbon is expelled from the body and oxygen is taken in. We could count millions of examples. Look, just for a single individual of a single species, human out of millions of species, we could count millions. For each of the approximately 90 million human babies currently under construction in the womb, billions of similar wise processes are taking place. Before questioning what naturalist science says about the millions of years of the origin of species, we must question what it says about how the billions of living things born today come into being. Because the mind-boggling interpretations begin right here. So while every moment of life is filled with processes that should inspire awe, serve as evidence for their artisan, and make the human mind not just the tongue, but the mind say, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, to cover all this evidence with the ignorance that laws govern this process, and to dictate this to the masses, while every one of the millions of individuals of millions of species born today is filled with evidence of wise and merciful intervention, similar to the camel calf, to cover this evidence with the delusion that's just his DNA, and to become a murderer of wonder, a murderer of the knowledge of God, Ma'rifatullah. This is what the Quran calls the greatest oppression. Because worse than killing a person's body is to kill their very humanity. An organism that cannot recognize its Lord from existence, that does not feel wonder, and does not prostrate to satisfy this wonder, cannot possess the quality of being human. Because other things do not much distinguish this organism from others. If you dull and destroy the human organism's functions of witnessing the Creator's attributes of wonder and consequently of prostration and gratitude, there can be no greater destruction, no greater oppression than this. And if we set aside the exceptionally conscious science teachers, science classes, in their current form of teaching, are the #1 agent of this oppression. Anyway, while some see the solution in opening more and more religious schools, I will again call on science students to question the nonsense being injected into you. Learn to distinguish, my friends. Look, think about it. If someone said that falling raindrops are guided by angels, it would be called a belief and would be mocked, right? But when this person and thousands of other scientists like him say that the same process is governed by the laws of nature, let alone being called a belief and mocked, not a single person says, dude, what are you talking about? Can the law govern the process? Why can't they say it? Because it's presented to you not on the counter of belief, but on the counter of science. Yet it is also a belief. And it is an irrational belief without a shred of evidence. Look, gentlemen, worshippers of naturalism, the situation looks very comical from here. At least know this, the situation looks very comical to some people. And what I think you should really ponder, what is very interesting is this. These some people who are also engineers, doctors, pharmacists, etc. In other words, people who have definitely passed through your system, find the logic established 1,400 years ago in an ancient book about how a leaf falls to be more rational and sound than the logic you have established as modern individuals of the 21st century. And not in a way of blind acceptance, but after examining and verifying the matter, in my opinion, this fact alone is proof that this book is the book of truth. There is actually another step beyond this, but let's leave that for the next episode.